The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Ask the Experts webinar. These are weekly webinars during build season, and they're targeted to the FRC community and held on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. So you can look for the links in the FRC Team Canada blast that goes out to our mentors and team communication officers, or you can look for it on First Robotics Canada socials. Everyone has entered on mute, and I'd ask you to stay muted to improve the audio quality for everyone. And if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand electronically or type your question in the question box, and we're going to answer those during the webinar. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm your moderator. I'm Sarah Sills, and I am a first senior mentor with First Robotics. My goal is to help you get the most from this event. And tonight we're going to focus on the game rules for Infinite Recharge. And we're going to talk about build tips for autonomous. I'm going to give you some news updates. So the FLL Junior Expo, one of them, was held just this Sunday in Ontario at Durham College. And you can see the age group is kindergarten to grade 3. They're super cute. When they win awards, as this team did, their medals are build your own Lego. So you can see they've got like a bag of Lego attached to their strap. And once they build it, they can attach it to their own lanyard. So that's pretty fun. And I just wanted to highlight like the FLL juniors across Canada. And so you can see there's some different events happening. So that was kind of my theme today then. I was looking at FLL championships. We just had the Ontario East Championship last weekend at Durham College on Saturday. But there's a West version, and then there's ones again across Canada. So it's really cool to see the first programs growing across Canada. I also was at the FTC Championships on Sunday, and that was the first provincial championship for Ontario, which is very cool. But there's other events happening in British Columbia and Alberta, in case you didn't know. And I don't have the results of the events this weekend because they aren't yet up on the site, so I don't have them all noted from the event. But you can look for that information, and I want to just give congratulations to all the teams involved. For FRC, no competitions yet, but we can get ready by taking the safety quiz. So this has been going for a couple of years, and over 12,000 people have already taken the safety quiz in past years. So Mr. Keenan's goal is to get that up to 15,000 people this year. So he's really hoping people will take the quiz this year. You can earn a badge, which is cool. And they have all been bronze badges in the past, but this year it's looking like there will be a silver badge. I don't have full details, but I do have a hint that, you know, knowing CPR is always a good thing. And also, Mr. Keenan, to try and hit that 15,000 goal, is offering weekly prizes. So he's going to track who's taking the quiz and just do a random draw of the participants to give a weekly prize. And fun fact, about 15% of the people taking the quiz get perfect. Now, I would say you can take it more than once, so feel free to strive for perfection yourself, but you don't always get the same questions. There's a big bank of questions that they come from. So anyways, just some information about the safety quiz. We're going to see a little video about the SABREBYTES later in one of the presentations, but I wanted to give you a little background on what that is. So Team 118 out of Texas, they're called the Robonauts, since, NASA is around there and astronauts are, from that area. I thought it was a good name. And there's a link, but you can, just Google it and find it. But they build an SABREBYTE. So they've just finished building the SABREBYTE, and their goal is, they have done this for a number of years. I think this is their third year. And their goal is to build a competitive robot to play that year's game and then to share it out. So they try to make it affordable, less than $100 or around, sorry, $1,000. Um, and so that, teams don't need to have a lot of money to be able to build the spot. They also want to just use items that are easily available. So either they come from the kit apart or items that you could find at a nearby hardware store, just kind of off the shelf items. And then they give you all the information you need to help build it. So they share out the CAD, they give the bill of materials so you don't have to develop that for competition. They write the coding for it and share that. They will post information, they answer questions, they have a forum to support you. So the idea for this is just, if it's a rookie team or a team that has limited resources, that everybody would be able to build a robot that can be competitive. So that's cool. You can think about that as an option. There is a workshop coming up this coming Saturday out in Oakville area. It's free and it's to help you learn more about Limelight and computer vision. They're going to have some demos and show you how to use it and talk you through the coding for it. And they're going to feed you too. So if you're interested, you can reach out to their mentor of 1360 at the email address shown and join in that event if you'd like information about that. So I think that's it for news and updates. I wanted to introduce our first team, 772, the SABREBYTES. And today we have Nick and Sean that are going to represent the team. This is a long-standing team, very famous. They're from the Windsor area, or more specifically LaSalle. And they started it all in the Windsor area and then have been so successful in encouraging and inspiring other teams in the region and the area to start teams and get involved and grow them and help build the succession programs to lead up to it with FLL, that they now run their own district event in that area. That's how many teams are in that area, so that's very cool. And they have a reputation for safety, so that's a very good thing. They act as a hub in that area, so they'll support any teams in Western Ontario or Northern Ontario, or really anyone who accesses them online, to give them support through build season. So that's a great role that they lead to the team. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean and Nick, and they're going to help us with the game rules for Infinite Recharge. And just give me a second. I'm going to let them take control of the screen because it's pretty interactive.
Okay. So we just wanted to start by saying I'm mechanical lead for 772. This is Sean.
I'm Sean. I'm the scouting leader for 772.
Yeah. So we're doing understanding the rule book and just everything on the rules.
So we're going to start off with a short rulebook quiz, just about different things in the rules. So first question is, what is the maximum amount of time that you can pin another robot for? So I'll give you guys a few seconds if you want to write that down, and then we'll reveal the answer. So the answer is 5 seconds. That's the maximum amount of time that you can pin another robot for. Second question, how many points are credited towards the opponent's score if your alliance receives a foul? So the answer is 3 points. So if you get a foul, then the opposing alliance will receive 3 points for that foul. So question 3, how many points are credited towards the opponent's score if your alliance receives a tech foul? So the answer to that is 15 points. If you receive a tech foul, then the opposing alliance will get 15 points.
Yikes, that's
Question 4. Yeah. Question 4, true or false? You're allowed to intentionally damage another team's robot. The answer for that one is false. You cannot intentionally damage another team's robot.
You better have gotten that one right out.
Question 5.
This is not BattleBots.
No.
So can you shoot from your sector across the field? So can you do like a full court shot in infinite recharge? The answer for that is actually no. You cannot shoot from your sector across the field to the power courts. That's illegal in infinite recharge. Question 6 is another true or false. You are allowed to transport more than 5 power cells across the field as long as they are not inside your robot's frame perimeter. So the answer for that is false. You can only have 5 balls inside your frame perimeter that you transport across the field, and if you're pushing them intentionally, then that does count as a next slide. First question, how many times must you spin the control panel during stage 2 to earn 10 points? The answer to that is 3 to 5 times. If you spin the control panel between 3 to 5 times, you will earn the second stage activated for the shield generator. The second question, how many ranking points do you earn for winning a match? The answer is 2 ranking points, and it's 1 if you tie for both sides. Question 3, how many points are you rewarded for a level climb? The answer is 15 points, so you get an additional 15 points if your climb is level in the end game. Question 4, what is the maximum height your robot can be prior to the end game period of the match? So this is before last 30 seconds of the match. The answer is 45 inches, but actually once you're in the rendezvous zone, you can go much higher than this.
Yeah, so if you're in the end game and you're outside the rendezvous, it's still, that 45 inches still applies.
So question 5, how many power cells must be scored to get to stage 3? This is a total of 29 power cells. So that's, actually, I think that might be a typo. It's actually 49. So
so 9 power cells to get to stage 1.
Yeah.
During stage 1, you need 9 power cells, and then during stage 2, you need 20. So to get to stage 3, you need 20.
Yeah.
Nick, you're just cutting out a little bit, so make sure you're in front of the mic. But you're right, it's 9 and then 10 and then 10.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Okay.
So question 6, true or false? Your robot's frame perimeter can be less than 120 inches. The answer to that is true. Your robot just cannot be more than 120, but it can be smaller than 120 inches. So last set of questions. Question number 1, how many power cells start on the field? So the answer for this is 20 power cells automatically. However, if your robots choose not to hold the optional 3 power cells at the beginning of the match, then those 3 power cells per robot will be put around the rendezvous zone. So question 2, how many points are earned for leaving the initiation line during autonomous? The answer for this is 5 points. If you leave the initiation line, you'll get 5 points during autonomous. Question number 3, true or false? You cannot hit another robot in the rendezvous zone during the endgame. Answer for this is true. You are not allowed to hit your opponent, the opposing alliance's robots while they're trying to climb. If you do so, it will count actually for a climb for them, even if they don't climb. Ooh. Number 4, true or false? You are allowed to walk over the field barriers to retrieve your robot as long as the match is complete. Answer for this is false. You cannot walk over the barriers unless the gates are open. So you have to walk through the gates in order to retrieve your robot, and you have to be permitted by people on the field.
And yeah, the lights on the field have to be green as well.
Yeah. Question number 5. For how many seconds after the match has ended must your robot be hanging for the climb to count for 25 points? The answer for this is 5 seconds after the match has ended. So if you climb and your robot falls at before 5 seconds after the match, then you will not receive the 25 points for your climb.
Ooh, harsh.
Pardon?
Harsh.
Yeah. This also goes for being level as well. You have to be level 5 seconds after the match has ended too. Or else it won't count.
Okay.
So final question, what is the maximum speed you can rotate the control panel at? The answer to this is 60 RPM, because if you spin it too fast, it could cause damage to the field. You don't want that. So if anyone wants to use these for rulebook quizzes for your teams, then just, you can go back when we post this later, when this is posted later, and, copy these questions.
So now I'm just gonna briefly talk about the rules and why it's important to understand them going forward as a team. So the first viable strategy is, can your game plan function properly? Doing something that might be against the rules? Is it even legal? It depends on what the rules are for the game that year. Another thing is perspective. Every year, teams tend to look at other teams differently. So how will teams look at you, and how will you look at teams? So this year, I've been reading on how most teams are gonna. They don't feel Mecanum wheels are gonna be useful on the chassis. So that's something you have to look out for when you're reading the rule book. Just to inference on what your design is going to be. Even those little things like just the chassis and scoring. Will you have a negative effect on match scores, and is it even worth it? So sometimes scoring, as a rookie team, some points aren't worth it to you for the amount of time that it's going to take for you to design this perfect shooter or whatever it may be. I also wanted to cover reading the rule book versus understanding it. A lot of people, I noticed, even on our team sometimes, it happens everywhere, it's fine. But when they say they read the rule book, they don't necessarily understand it, and they just kind of read it just to read it. They don't think critically and try and find their own idea of how they could use this rule to their advantage, or how they can play off of it well. So every line should paint a picture for you. When you're seeing, what I like to do is when you're seeing the rule book for the first time, I like to think about it as how a robot would play around that rule. And that really helps me when it comes to designing the robot every year. I also like to imagine it first as a world champion robot, then at the level we play at. So I imagine if I could do everything perfectly, this is how I would do it, and so on. Some things to note is that everyone's reading the same rule book and not everyone thinks like you. What I like to do is think about how other teams might perceive the rules, not specifically, but just I'll try and work around the rule book and see how other teams might see that rule compared to what I do. Where do they put emphasis on, and where they don't. And then what to do when you're stuck. This is going to sound a little childish, but when in doubt, sound it out. I find that reading it out loud sometimes helps me get a better, clearer idea or image in my mind when it comes to the rule book. And I also like to put emphasis on certain words just to see how it would change the tone that the rule book is taking. You can also ask around friends and mentors on your team or other teams too. You can use first resources. Those are very important. All the videos they post Field Cat as well. And finally, you can use Chief Delphi, which is more of a last resort, in my opinion. If I don't really understand a rule, and I've tried everything, I'll go there and ask around there, see what other people think about that given rule.
I would also just mention to make sure you keep up with the team updates that come out.
Yeah, that's also important. Why it's important to understand the rules. So I'm focusing on this as teams in a picking position and teams in a non-picking position, just to make it a little easier to see how teams are trying to focus on the rules. Teams in a picking position are normally looking for robots who maximize points. So they're looking for robots that understand the scoring values of the game. But in a sense where it's not like, oh, they're not going for the most amount of points, but they understand that some tasks aren't worth their time as, like, let's say like a rookie robot. They're also looking for teams who defend efficiently and zone effectively. So like last year in 2019, zoning was really important because if you could block off a field for a part of the field for a couple of seconds, you would reduce that team's cycle time drastically. And finally, they're looking for robots who don't foul. So that's like the big one, where teams understand the rule book and they understand what they can or can't do. And I want to like talk about this one a little more. 2 years ago, we had a girls rookie team, 6875, and they just came into the event or the competition, and they knew the rule book front to back, and they ended up winning provincials, right? Yeah. They ended up winning provincials, and it was just all because they understood the rule book. They knew what they were doing when they were driving, and they made sure they didn't foul. They didn't make any plays that would cost their team a win. So then teams in a non-picking position, so they normally want to impress higher up robots. So that involves understanding the rules, like everything in the previous column. They also want to be able to be flexible. And like when it comes to the rules, it's about, again, maximizing your points and trying to figure out how much you can do just like with the resources that you have. And then also not wanting to be like liable for their teams of teams that don't foul. So then the last couple of minutes of our time, we just wanted some questions. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Nick, I'm just going to have a look at the question box, and I'm going to take the control back again to do that.
Okay.
One thing I just noticed, like it was 15 points for a tech foul, right? And it's also 15 points for a hang. So your tech foul could just cancel out a team's hang. So I think knowing the rules, or knowing, how you might get a foul, is so critical.
Yeah. And there's a lot of rules. It's not just like knowing that tech fouls are 15 points. It's just knowing which ones are fouls and like which ones you shouldn't do, and which ones like you really shouldn't do, right?
It's important to know like what you should be doing on the field and make sure that you're avoiding situations that you could get yourself in that could really, screw up your point scoring and cause the other team to win, based on the amount of points they'll be getting from you making these little mistakes, because they really add up after a while, and they could be the difference between winning or losing the match.
Yeah. The other thing that I just thought about while you were saying it was, knowing that you can't do a full court shot. And although that would be super fun,
Yeah.
that's a mistake that, a team could spend a lot of effort trying to get a full court shot done, so they might not have to travel as much or for whatever reason, and then get to competition and realize it's against the rules and all that time was, wasted. So just understanding the rules is so critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really factors into like how well you do that year, and like it's just how you perceive the rule book.
Yeah.
Some other great things I thought you teased out were about the control wheel, that there is a limit. You can't spin faster than a certain limit. And just that, the goal is that 3 to 5 times. So you don't want to be less than 3. You don't want to be more than 5. So all those specific things.
Yeah, there's that control panel's got a lot of weird little quirks to it this year.
Right.
Yeah, but I just want to say like how important it is to completely read the rule book and understand it, because you don't want to be wasting your time during build season creating some sort of mechanism that really won't end up working because it doesn't match to the rules. And it's really gonna mean a lot when it comes to you're gonna be at your first competition and you're gonna realize that your robot doesn't actually work with what the game needs it to. So it's important to just take apart that rule book and really read through it and make sure everyone on your team understands everything that's in it.
Great. Well, thank you for that information. I'm going to keep the question box up in case something comes through. So if you hang around, that'll be awesome.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll try and address it. But I'm going to keep going then and introduce our next presenters. So we have, two teams because they're linked. I call them the theories. 1241 began in 2004. And they have a rich history. They've got 24 blue banners hanging in their shop. They also run a hub, just like I was saying 772 does. They look out especially for the west side of GTA, looking for support or assistance. But fun fact, they're aligned with Compass Alliance, which offers support worldwide. So that's kind of cool that they are involved in that. And if you go to their website, theory6.ca, under the Impact tab, you can get the details on their hub. 1285 was formed as their rookie team, so they, I believe, have their younger team members, their grade 9 and 10, often starting on 1285 and then moving up to 1241. They were founded 10 years ago, 10 years after 1241, so that was 2014. And they also have 5 blue banners of their own, which is pretty impressive. And one of the things I really like about these teams is how they live and support EDI, which is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for FIRST. So they have a Girls in STEM Olympics. I think that's coming up soon. And they have new immigrant FLL program as just 2 examples of how they walk the talk in that area. We're going to hear today from Max Guan, who is their drive coach and the design mentor, and he's going to talk to us today about build tips for autonomous. So just give me a second and I'm going to get their presentation up for us. There we go. All right, thanks, Max.
All right. Just to kind of introduce myself, I am the new drive coach for Team 1241, and I've been the drive coach for Team 1285 for the past couple of years. The first year I was in FIRST Robotics was actually 1285's first year, so been around since 2014, and I've been doing a lot of strategy and scouting with both teams ever since I've been on FIRST Robotics. During the build season, I also do a little bit of design, and so a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about is building tips for autonomous. So we'll talk a little bit about what autonomous is, important things to consider as a less experienced team. We'll look at some videos of past robots and present robots, and then we'll also talk about what the autos are probably going to look like coming to the first couple of weeks of competition. So on to the first slide of what is autonomous, why is it important? So for anyone who's absolutely brand new to FRC who's listening in, FIRST Robotics has been doing autonomous periods for as long as I can remember. And it's the first segment of a match, and it's 15 seconds this year, where all robots on the field have to move based on their pre-programmed code only. So there's no driver, there's no person able to control what's going to happen. It's a pre-programmed routine, and that's all 6 robots on the field. So what's important about this is that teams are undefended, or are relatively undefended in this time. So you can run the same routine over and over, and you can expect pretty much the same result. Some teams or some games can even be won off of an autonomous. So 2018 was a game where if you got a bunch of your power cubes into the scale at the early part of the game, that would eventually snowball to teams winning. And some robots are even designed to complete autonomous tasks very quickly. 2014 is a good example where the Cheesy Poofs, the eventual world champions, They built a double intake that could have a third ball, and they would do all 3 autonomous ball shots in under 5 seconds, which is really impressive. So on to the next slide. A couple of important things to consider during autonomous period. The top shooter teams will want to shoot from the middle or the right side of the field if you're looking from your driver station. And that's because they want to prioritize getting the inner goal. The inner goal is 6 points in autonomous, and that's points that every team's going to want to get. So this means that they're going to want to start either aligned with the target zone or with the target, or they're going to want to align themselves with the trench run. And the reason why I say that is because once they shoot their 3 balls, they might want to drive back into the trench zone, intake those 3 balls, or even 5 if they make it all the way across, and then come back and then shoot those 5 as well. So for one robot, that's pretty doable for the sharpshooter teams around the world, and that's 8 balls out of your 9 to get to stage 2. So a couple considerations for teams that might be paired up with these teams. When you're running your autonomous, is your team going to shoot high? And do you have the resources to do so? So there's a concept of quality versus quantity. And an idea with that is that if you have the ability to perform a task in a given amount of time, and you have a higher efficiency, or your expected point value per ball shot is higher than another team's, then the priority should be given to you, the team that's going to get the more points. What's going to get you to your goal? So teams that might miss 3 out of their 5 balls, or they might not get all of their balls into the inner goal, they might have a better strategy to pass the balls to another team that can do that. And we'll see a video of this strategy being used in 2012. Another thing to consider is if everyone's shooting for the high goal, especially the inner goal can only really fit 1 ball. If everyone's shooting for it at the exact same time, 3 streams of balls in the air, there's a good chance that these balls might collide. So the sharpshooter teams that are going to be going for inner goal, turn around, intake some balls, and then shoot 3 more into the inner goal. These teams are going to shoot really quickly and then go do their intaking. So you might want to put a delay on your autonomous to wait maybe 2 seconds, or even better, if at a competition, you can adjust it on the fly. That's what top teams are going to be looking for when they pick robots, is being able to adjust autonomous. You might want to add in a delay, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, just to make sure that your balls don't get in the way of another team's balls. And likewise, those balls that they're shooting don't get in the way of your balls. Because if they shoot and it looks like you guys missed, then scouts are going to look at that and they're going to wonder whose fault it really was. So take the initiative and even just open up the conversation and ask. So another thing that teams will want to consider is your movement and your mobility, because that's 5 points. If you're capable of doing it, it's something that is going to be expected by the top tiers of play. And which direction do you have to move? This year is pretty unique, where you don't have to move in any specific direction. You just leave the infinite volume that is created by the initiation line. So you can choose to drive forward or choose to drive backwards, whichever one it is you decide. So I brought it up earlier, but this next slide is going to be a 2012 championships video. We're going to see some familiar faces here.
Archimedes, 1 versus 2. It's the clash of the Titans. 15-second hybrid period. Robotics quickly scoring. Red Alliance following suit. There's some more scores by the Red Alliance. 36 points for the Red Alliance, 30 for the Blue. Outstanding hybrid action. Drivers take control.
All right, so in the earlier part of that video, you could see our friends from St. Catharines, 11-14, getting fed by 43-34, another Canadian team, while 2056 was off to the side shooting as well. So these guys became an alliance, and they named themselves the A team, supporting our Canadian location. And that's something that you could see that would happen on the other side of the field, where a Red Alliance would do it as well. So they had a team feeding into one of the higher accuracy teams that had the ability to be fed, and then they had another robot shooting. So it's not like this. It's not like this strategy is brand new to this year. It's been done in the past. And even 2014, there are teams that would leave their balls on the side of the robot for a triple ball autonomous to happen. This is something that's been used in multiple games.
That was pretty
So
cool. Thanks for including that video.
yeah, it's a pretty cool one, and I'm wondering how many of the attendees were around for back then, because I wasn't, but it's a famous strategy,
I
right?
saw.
And big ups to 1114, who are always ahead of the curve with that. So we talked about it a little bit, 118's EveryBot, and I think you explained perfectly. The EveryBot is something that every team should be able to build, and it's sort of a good place to start for teams that don't really have a vision for themselves, and they really just want to use this as a platform for learning and building for future years. So we'll take a look at the video now, and I'll comment on it afterwards. So you can see that feeding right there. So just a little quick thing to note is I love the Robonauts' attention to detail. They'll actually edit their videos to be exactly 1 minute and 18 seconds long. So if you look at the timestamp there, you can see their team numbers everywhere.
Sorry, I'm just battling my mouse.
So I'll just go ahead and start talking about what's awesome about that robot. And one thing that I know a lot of teams are really looking for in 118's design is that it's attainable for low resource teams that are strapped for cash. Maybe they lost a sponsor. Maybe they're still building up their sponsorship pool. So they use low resource methodologies to make sure that everyone can attain this design. They make it very accessible for teams. The one thing that you do get out of 118 that is sort of on the same level as having a robot that 118 would build is that they do the game analysis. They know what teams that are going to build an EveryBot should display to the teams that would be picking the EveryBot. They know they're going to be alliance captains, and they know what kind of robots they want to pick. So, a big thing that I think a lot of teams might be thinking earlier in the season is, do we climb or do we do the control panel? Do we climb or do we score inner? And I think 118 nailed it by saying, you know what, you don't need to shoot high, you need to hang, because a lot of teams are going to be looking for that. A lot of high top level teams are going to be looking to pick teams that can hang. If you can shoot high and you can make those points, great. But if you can't do that ranking, if you can't get that balancing points and that 15 points at the end of the match, or sorry, the 25 points to climb at the end of the match, then that's a lot. Well, that's a big point swing that you wouldn't be able to make back. And defense is a very important part of the game as well. And they actually showed it a little bit too here, but they fed the other alliance even during the middle of the teleop. They would drive into the middle of the field and they would kind of just outtake the balls lightly and push it in the direction of whoever they're feeding. So a lot of really good stuff in just the 1 minute and 18 seconds that they put into that video. So on to the last slide. So this is sort of an idea of what some autos are going to look like. Obviously, there's going to be other, crazy ideas, but here are some of the more vanilla, basic ones. So 2 teams shooting high and 1 team preloads low. Sorry, not scores preload. They they score their 3 preloads into the low goal. So they'd have to drive up into the target zone and then go into the low goal there. And the benefit of this is that you get, if you have 2 teams that can shoot high well, essentially you're going to get your 9 points right out of autonomous, or the 9 balls right out of autonomous, so that you can start stage 2. Another one is 3 teams all shooting high. But a big thing about this is if you have 9 balls going for the same target at the exact same time, you're going to have to worry about collision in midair. 2 teams shooting high, 1 team feeds the best shooter. This is what we saw in 2012 in the video with 1114, 2056, and 4334. And finally, there's the 2 teams shooting high. When 1 team feeds the best shooter, the other robot shoots and goes for more balls. So this is sort of the Einstein winning combination, where you have the 2 sharpshooter teams, and then you have sort of the third robot who fills that utility role. They do the feeding, they do the defense, they do the climbing. So some rookie autos and low resource autos that I think the top teams and the most successful rookie teams are going to have or should have. They're going to either feed an experienced team and they're going to drive forward. Mobility, again, is very important. Scouts will look at this and they'll be able to tell if robots and teams are capable just by telling if, looking at the statistic, are you driving forward half of the time, or are you driving forward 99% of the time? Driving forward to score balls in the low goal. Again, this is important if you want to get the RP or you want to get the bonus points for the control panel stages. And then an important part is driving left or right, driving from the left or right side of center. And by center, I mean centered with the scoring, and not taking that position, because a lot of sharpshooter teams are going to want to be there. They're going to want that. They're going to call dibs on that spot because they want to get those inner goals. And finally, to drive forward, score balls, and then drive near the center to be ready to collect balls and teleop. So this is important because you have to think about what are you going to do with that 15 seconds. If you're shooting for 5 of them, you have 10 more seconds to do something else. And an important rule this year is during auto, no defense. That's G3. And it's basically saying that you can't cross to your own sector, which is a lot of the ways across the field, which means that in auto, there's a lot of places that you can drive. So take that how you will. Think about where you want to be at the start of teleop. If your goal is to go play defense, where do you want to be? If you have the extra 10 seconds to go drive around, think about where you want to leave your robot when your drivers take control of the sticks. That's it for the slides, and just a couple comments on keeping autonomous accurate and repeatable. A big thing about robots in general, compared to humans, is that they are, they're creatures of habit. They'll do the same thing over and over and over, especially if you give it the same code. Autonomous is a great example of this. But some things that can sort of nudge or impact your ability to stay accurate and to stay repeatable are things like if you have an intake arm there's a lot of free movement. So let's say you have a chain and the chain is loose. There's a lot of free movement between your motor gearbox and your arm. That can create, that little bit of inconsistency and that variance that makes your autonomous different. If you have too severe of a drop center on your drive base and your robot rocks back and forth and you're using encoders to drive around, that might affect your pathing. Just general tidiness and general attention to detail when it comes to machining, fabricating, and all of that pay attention and do well stuff is going to affect your autonomous. And for us, a big consideration is we don't want to have a drop center some years because we know our autonomous is really important when it comes to pathing. We don't want to rock our robot back and forth. We want to know exactly how many clicks our wheels are turning so that we know how far we drive forward. So that's it for me, and I'll be here for any questions. And
great,
back to you.
Really useful, Max. That was a nice summary of what could happen in autonomous, and I think a lot of teams are trying to put that all together and think about what their role will be and what they're capable of and where they should put their focus. So I think that's really useful information. I did have one question from a attendee, And the question is to just go over again about the power cells needed to move through the different stages. I think we just had that microphone cutting out when you said it before, Nick. So maybe 772, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure.
So what it is for, I'm pretty sure we had a typo there. So for the first stage, to activate the first stage, you'll have to have 9 power cells inside any of the 3 power ports. And once teleop starts, that'll activate the first stage. So you could do the entire first stage just in autonomous. The next 2 stages, you'll have to get 20 power cells inside, again, either of the 3 ports.
For each stage.
Yeah, for each stage. So to get to finish stage 2, you'll have to get 20 power cells in, and then you'll have to spin the control panel 3 to 5 times, and that'll give you 10 points, and it will activate stage 2. Then you'll have to get another 20 for the 3rd stage, and then once you got those 20 power cells in either of the ports, you have to spin the control panel to whatever the color the field will tell you to put it to, and that will give you 1 ranking point and 20 points.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I said that wrong too, right? So the total number of balls would be 49 then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. I'm glad we cleared that up. And I don't see any more questions at the moment. So I think we'll just go ahead and summarize. Just, ideas in case you're not busy enough during build season and you're looking for something else to do. You can sign up to volunteer. And I just say that also because I'm thinking of my Dean's List people. One of the things, if you want to be, looked at as a potential Dean's List student, is they love to see you helping other programs or other teams, and volunteering is a way you can do that. So mentoring is another way you can do it, or outreach in your own town or other areas, or helping with hubs are other ways too. But hey, volunteering is fun. And then I think that's just our summary. I want to say a big thank you to 772 and Nick and Sean. You were awesome. The game rules are critical, so helping us to understand them is really important.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was good. And a big thank you to 1241, 1285. It's pretty cool how one person can, stand for 2 teams. Well done. But thank you to Max for your insight on the autonomous mode in particular, and what you might want to think about for your build in that area.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. And next week, we have the same 2 teams back because you guys were awesome together. But we're going to have different topics. So it's Tuesday at 7. 772 is going to talk to us about some mechanical tips for attachments, and they'll probably be talking more about ones, not necessarily in autonomous. So I'm thinking they might be talking more about the shooters and the hanging and control panels. So attachments. And then 1241 and 1285 / I don't know how many people this time are going to be talking to us about team branding, which, the theories have down to a science. Sorry. Okay. And my email address is there. We still have a few more webinars that have not been claimed. The topics went out on the latest FRC blast, so you can check with your mentors if you're like, hey, why isn't our team doing this? You can. There's still a few more left. And also just to note that all of these webinars go up on the First Robotics Canada YouTube channel. They're under a playlist that's about the Ask the Expert webinars, so you can look for them there. I know a lot of people watch them after the event because it's hard to be available at that precise time, Tuesday at 7. But of course, the advantage of being live is you can ask your questions. So either option is good. And I think I'm going to say thank you and good night. Thanks all for joining us.